muted, Kirk D.
No, I'm not muted. It's my internet. Can you hear me?
Woo! Yeah. Well, what a start to the show.
All right, I think we're back.
Yeah,
we're good. Like real. Okay. There's me. Can we start over?
No.
All right. Well, welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kirkwood, here with my boys, the notorious one, Noto, Derek Farnsworth, and TJ Zwarych, Saskatchewan's greatest DFS player. And we are going to talk wild card. We're going to talk about the 2-game slate tomorrow on Saturday, and then the 3-gamer on Sunday, because that's where all the prize pools are, the biggest tournaments. So that's how we'll break it down. But what's happening, Noto? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, boys? Happy Friday. I'm over here sweating a made cut parlay for the PGA Tour. So hopefully that goes well. And yeah, excited for some playoff football. Didn't have the best week 18, but yeah, how about you guys?
It's all a big blur anyway. I think I had a bad week 18.
I'm pretty sure I did decent, like made my money back on it, but like I'm with you, Kirk. It just feels like a blur. I've been sick for the last week. I've been playing a lot of video games. My mother-in-law's been here taking care of the baby, but she left today, so I don't remember what day it is, when it is, but I've broken down this football slate a few times already, and I feel ready to go for this weekend.
Yeah, sorry about that. My kid, he has a fever, so he's it's going crazy. All right, let's get it's a challenging time of year, especially with the staff shortages now on RotoGrinders, where we're all picking up a bunch of extra shows and whatnot. So, but happy to do it. Let's talk. Noto mentioned golf. Let's get the housekeeping cleaned up here. PGA Premium, PGA Tour is back in action, which means your favorite golf analysts are churning out content and projections. Familiar faces like the one and only Notorious and STL Cards headline our loaded PGA DFS product, which includes articles, videos, lineup HQ, SimLabs, and more. Playing multiple DFS sports? Check out this sweet deal. For a limited time, get your first month of Combo Pro for $79.99. That's just $15 more than PGA Premium and $5 more than NBA Premium. That's pretty darn good value. We also got the Props and Pick'em tool going on. Get here, get expert picks from your favorite sites with Props and Pick'em, our elite sports betting fantasy Pick'em packages feature bets and analysis from your favorite RG experts. Prop and Pick'em also includes tools and data part of our hard-working projections team. Don't make a bet without it. Let's finish. Let's get through them all here. Pumping it. RJ Combo Lite. Holiday season brings us up some huge DFS contests for the NBA and NFL. We want you to have a massive holiday takedown, so we're taking $10 off your first month of Combo Lite. That means access to our SimLabs lineup building tool and content from some of your favorite DFS analysts for just $19.99. And then lastly, Splash Sports. Splash, if you haven't signed up for now, Splash Sports, now is the time. Use promo code ROTO10, and when you play 100 in Quick Picks, you'll get another $50. That's over and done with. You guys can fast forward through all that if you want to. But, well, I'll give one plug for golf. I'll tell you what's printing money is just Noto does that. What's your Excel sheet that you put up where you have what do you call that?
I think it's just a PGA DFS
model. Your model. Yeah. So that's a printing press. I used to like just literally just open your model, open up your, just look. It's all self-explanatory. You see who the best values are. You see their course history. I know nothing about golf, but I did that for a couple of years, and I was just like, Noto, it's just free money over the course of the season. So Noto's the best in the business. He's been doing this forever. Has had monster scores. Big golf guy. So check him out.
I produced the PGA show with Noto and Cards this week, and we have a super, super tight draft that we did with the listeners over the show. Noto, do you know who my best golfer is?
I don't. I haven't looked at it yet. What? How are you looking?
The guy who auto drafted on the last pick. He's 5 under, and 5 under is my lowest score. So it's like I'm looking decent. It's super tight, all like from top to the bottom. It's anybody's game. But I thought it was super funny that the guy who I was mad that I auto drafted at the end is 5 under. He's actually my top golfer.
Yeah, that's how it works. Just auto draft those things.
All right. Well, let's talk some football. You guys ready for playoffs here?
Let's do it.
We're talking about playoffs.
Playoffs.
So, yeah, playoffs. So we've got 2-gamer. Let's talk that one on tomorrow. 4:30 starts off. Got the Chargers 3-point favorites heading into Houston. Houston just hasn't been very good this season as much as I was expecting. Stroud seems like he's regressed in general, but they've started off the season hot. They have a lot of the tools, so a lot of Nico Collins. They've got Joe Mixon. They've got, if Stroud can get things going here, they could be pretty competitive. It's got a 41.5 point total, opened at 44.5, so it's been dropping the total. And then the other game is with Baltimore at home against the Steelers. They're 9.5 point favorites, 43.5 point total. That has been coming down too as well. So that's where we're going to first start here. So big picture overview. It's just a 2-gamer. Everybody's in play. Even some people that you don't think are in play are probably in play. So big picture overview, Noto, how you feeling about this little 2-gamer?
Yeah, I don't love it, but I think my approach is going to be to stack the Ravens as much as I can. Zay Flowers is out. They have the highest team total by far at home. We've seen them put up some points against Steelers a few weeks ago. So, I like Lamar, Henry. I like the full onslaught. You can play both tight ends. You can mix in Bateman and Aguilar. So I think I'm going to just do the onslaught and hope the first game kind of duds out.
And what about you, TJ?
Yeah, Baltimore onslaught is going to be my favorite way to go about it as well. I'm punting. I'm just playing like 3 lineups, and I have it right now is one is a game stack of the first one, and the other 2 are Baltimore onslaughts with just different variations of the players I want in the first game. But my favorite builds right now have all Ravens, 1 Charger, and 1 Texan.
Yeah, make sure, little pro tip, if you're not building by hand, you're using an optimizer, building a bunch of lineups, make sure you set that defensive setting there that you're allowed to play players against your defense. Just pump it up to the max. Every defense is in play. It really doesn't matter. So make sure you do that. Instead, a lot of people have it, like a regular season, and they don't check it. Jeez. All right. So let's do things a little differently because it's really going to be quarterback driven. So let's just talk about the quarterback position, and then talk about running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, defenses, and how we're going to get unique and win all the money. So starting at the top here from an ownership perspective, I think on tomorrow's slate, we're going to get it's going to be Lamar, right? And that everyone wants to do the onslaught that you guys said. So that's going to be – I've heard a lot of that. So I think that's going to be pretty common. I'm interested in that. And I'm obviously we got to talk about that Zay Flowers is out for this game. So that Bateman goes up. But really Mark Andrews goes up the most. Likely goes up. So 2 tight end Raven stacks totally in play. I love them, with Likely and Mark Andrews. So that's going to be a spot. Justin Herbert. Those 2 are going to be pretty much all the ownership, with Herbert. I have seen some people talking about Russell Wilson because of ownership, and Stroud is the blitz optimal QB at this point. I'm probably going to stay away from Stroud personally. I think I would take more of a shot on Russell Wilson, but again, I like everyone else. I like Lamar and Herbert, but Noto, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good way to approach the onslaught. Play both of the tight ends from Baltimore. They're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets without Zay Flowers. And I think a lot of people will go, Lamar, Henry, and then either Andrews or Bateman. But I don't think a ton of people will play both the tight ends with Lamar and Henry. At least that's what I'm hoping, especially in small field stuff. So that's probably going to be how I approach it. If I can't get up to Lamar, I do like Justin Herbert. Indoors against Houston, it's not a bad matchup. If you look at his numbers over the second half of the season, just continuously topping 20 fantasy points. He's a guy that has a bunch of weapons. We've seen Johnson and McConkey both look good in recent weeks. And, yeah, I think he's probably your best bet if you're not playing Lamar. He does have some rushing upside too, not a ton, but he's a guy that can scramble a little bit. I don't have much interest in Stroud. I think he's been held under 15 fantasy points in 8 of his last 11 or something like that. He just hasn't had any ceiling this season. So no Stroud for me. Probably not going to play a bunch of Wilson or any Wilson either.
Yep. The little thing, he was getting going a little bit in the beginning of that game, and when Nico had that touchdown, they drove down the field pretty nicely. But yeah, I mean, if you just look at his game log, like he just has not been very impressive. And this is a tough matchup. You got both; they're going to be bringing the heat, with Bosa. So yeah, I'm probably not going to go there either. But it's a tight spread. Anything can happen in the playoffs. So low ownership does make a big difference on this 2-gamer. But TJ, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm going the Lamar route in my 2 of my 3 lineups as well. I kind of thought he would be coming in even higher projected own than he is right now. We have him around 50%, but I think obviously in high dollar single entry stuff, it'll be a little higher than that. But I would want even bigger ownership discounts to try Stroud and Wilson that I just don't think we're going to be getting. And so I have Herbert in one lineup, Jackson in the other 2. And my favorite way to get a little bit different as well is to play both of the tight ends with him. And I would even if I were running 150 lineups, I'd be setting a rule that I want at least one of Andrews and Likely in every lineup.
So what's interesting also, thing to keep in mind here, as far as your onslaughts go, I know people are going to want to play some Russ to try to get different. And man, Pickens, you want like Pickens, right? Like, so who are you going to use with him? You're going to use probably Pickens, maybe Freiermuth, and I think Freiermuth's a better play. Pickens was just awful in the other last week, and then the matchup against the Ravens D, we went through most of the season where they were just awful against the pass, but they're kind of coming into their own and getting healthier, and I think it's a much different scenario now. So I don't think that you're going to get these, a big Russ game at all. I think if anything, if they're going to be competitive, it's going to be a defensive battle. But and that's tough to stop the Ravens with all their weapons. So I'm there with you guys on Lamar. I like Herbert too as well. There's just some cheap plays. Quentin Johnson's just really cheap. He was a guy that had loads of talent. He was the 21st pick, and finally has come into his own this year. Had some games. He does have some issues with drops and whatnot, but he's coming along now, and that offense is kind of gelling. Herbert's running, so I have no problem playing Herbert. And then I would probably want to go with like Derek Henry in that scenario, even against Pitt's good running D. I mean, this is why. So that's the thing too with Lamar. Like, we should talk about like this. They got Derek Henry for the playoffs, right? Like, they got so that he's going to run over a bunch of teams. And man, he got there in their last one, late. But 33 fantasy points against Cleveland in a win, 35-10. He projects very closely to Lamar and too as well. They're right next to each other. Are you going to try to get them in together at all? Is that possible? I haven't really built totally, but either you guys, or it's one or the other, or are you guys just leaning Lamar and throwing out Henry?
No, I'm talking about playing both. Yeah.
It's very doable to play both of them. We got a lot of really cheap plays on this slate, especially if you're doing the double tight end approach like Noto and I are talking about. So it's the Baltimore onslaughts with both tight ends, Lamar and Henry. That's my favorite 4 players to start in a lineup.
Yes, sir. Let's go, TJ.
I might join you. We'll see. Yeah, and so I guess no interest in Russ.
I don't know.
If I were running 20 lineups like I usually do, or 150, something like that, absolutely I would get some exposure. We're projecting him to be 10% owned. I probably try and double that and get 4 of him if I'm playing 20 lineups, 4 Wilson lineups, 4 Stroud, 4 Herbert, and then what does that leave me with? 8 remaining. So, and then 8 Lamar Jackson lineup. So it'd probably be how I ran it if I was doing 20. But just only in 3, I'm just getting a Lamar and Herbert. If I was only doing 1, it would absolutely be Lamar.
All right. Are you getting any Bateman in these onslaughts?
Yes, but I think Bateman and Quentin Johnston are the two probably best fades on this slate. I think the reason for that is, while we usually don't want to look too much into wide receiver versus cornerback matchups, they both have a pretty clear one that should be on them all game. And so we got I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, blame the cold, but Stingley, the all pro cornerback for Houston, that's likely going to be having Bateman the entire game because he's going to be the only one that's consistently lining up out wide. And then the same thing for that would be on Quentin Johnston because he doesn't go to the slot, and so we'll have McConkey in the slot while Stingley is going to be out on QJ, and then on the Bateman side of things, he's going to have Joey Porter, and I think it's just going to be a big tight end game. So while I am actually getting to Bateman in my lineups, I think there is very strong cause to say build a Baltimore stack without him.
Yeah, I do like him. So if I'm going Herbert, and I kind of think that this game ends up breaking out from a passing standpoint, especially with what's his name dinged up a little bit. Hold on, my computer is totally frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Dobbins, if with being dinged up, if they go to the pass, like it's easy to play it's easy to get all the wide receiver studs, McConkey and Quentin Johnston, even though you think he's a fade. I still think talent rises in the playoffs, so I still could see him having a good game, and I could see them potentially airing it out in this spot. And
I agree with you, but I think Stingley is the talent that's going to rise in the playoffs, and Quentin Johnson is not that guy.
I think he might be that guy though.
And they just absolutely give so many. They're a sieve to points in the slot, to fantasy points in the slot. They give up so much production to the slot, and that's just where McConkey eats. It really just feels like a McConkey.
Yeah, I'm gonna have McConkey. I just think maybe the double. He's cheap though, so that's my reasoning. And then have Henry in there, and then you can even do the double tight ends from that game But there is a world where they just run the hell out of Derek Henry, and Pittsburgh. Obviously, they want to just run also, and outside in the cold. There is a world where these games break the other way. So that's
I think my favorite way to use Quentin Johnston would be in that Baltimore onslaught that we were talking about, and then do Johnson instead of Bateman, because that's going to be a very unique way to utilize him. And I don't disagree with anything you were saying about QJ. He's cheap and he's probably going to get a lot of targets. It's just the fact that it's a tough matchup, and he's the third highest owned receiver on the 2-game slate. It feels like if nobody was going there, I would absolutely want to go there. It's just because everybody is, it feels like a bit of a fade to me. But using him in a Baltimore onslaught instead of Bateman, I think is a really good way to get different.
Yeah. And then what about since it's a 2-gamer, what about Aguilar?
I got Aguilar in one and Tylan Wallace in the other.
Yeah, those are the two. Do you have a preference, Noto, between those two?
Yeah, I like Aguilar a little bit. Who's going to be the wide receiver 3 for LA? Is it going to be Darius Davis?
I think Darius Davis is likely going to get a few more design touches for him, but the one who gets the most snaps will probably be DJ Chark.
The old flashback to DJ Chark. That's never worked for me.
He just looks so washed right now. They were trying to get him involved, and he had 3 targets. He did catch a touchdown in week 18. So he scored 7 fantasy points, but I would lean DJ Chark, but he does look washed.
I think Chark is going to play more snaps, but I still think Darius Davis has the higher ceiling. They will use designed plays for him in the red zone. So I definitely think he's the guy that I'd prefer of the two, even though I think Chark's going to play more.
Yeah. He had 2 games, 16 and 17, where he had 2 targets each. Red zone, obviously, that helped him. but it was against New England, Denver. All right. Running back are any of you guys considering anybody besides the main backs? Like Justice Hill in your onslaughts at all? Or
I like Jalen Warren a little bit.
I like him for sure.
We're assuming Baltimore puts up a bunch of points. I mean, Najee Harris is not that explosive. They're probably not going to be able to run the ball. So you could see Jalen Warren getting 6 to 8 targets, something like that in the spot.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Warren is also the more electric runner, and it's so obvious when they actually used him. When they played Baltimore the other week, he did have 12 rushing attempts. He did have 5 targets. I think he's a solid 5,200. He's actually my second. Well, he's my third. I like him better than Mixon, to be honest with you.
Who's your number 2?
Dobbins, probably.
Yeah, I like Derrick Henry's the clear number 1, but I like Warren as well. He's definitely my favorite Pittsburgh back and my favorite not named Henry or Mixon. I'm just having trouble fitting him into my current lineup constructions. And so I'm hoping to get him into a lineup. I don't have him in there right now. The biggest, with those Baltimore onslaughts, I kind of find myself in a 2v2, which is leading me to almost want to just do the same team twice. But I am doing this, one with Wallace, one with Aguilar. And then you leave yourself with a 2v2 from the first game. You can go Dobbins and Nico Collins, which is going to be the less chalky route, or you can go Mixon and McConkey, which will be the chalkier but better projecting route as well. And one kind of covers the one game script of Houston playing with the lead and Chargers having to pass. The other plays with the game script of Chargers playing with a big lead and Houston having to pass. So I like that quite a bit.
Yep. All right. Let's talk wide receiver here. Going down the list from just like an ownership standpoint, like Nico is going to be high owned for sure. McConkey, all these guys are going to be high owned. McConkey, Quentin Johnson because he's cheap at 4,800. Bateman because he's 5K. Pickens is kind of like the lower ownership after his horrible game, the way he looked from an eye test standpoint, and people probably won't want to click, but they may find themselves down and have no choice but to start airing it out, and Pickens should be their guy. If he's not, it could be Calvin Austin. We've touched on Aguilar. We've touched on Chark. That's where things are starting to thin out. Get lower owned guys. Mechie, another lower owned guy. I don't know. Who are your favorite receivers? It's so weird trying to break down a 2-game slate. Like just everybody's an option. But Noto, who are your favorites?
Yeah, I love Ladd McConkey. After that, I don't really love anybody. Just kind of playing around with whether or not I can fit Nico in my onslaught. If I do, I probably have to go Aguilar instead of Bateman and Andrews, maybe. I don't know. I'm playing around with that one. But curious to hear your guys' thoughts on Pittsburgh. You got to think one of their wideouts is going to have a decent game. I kind of like Freiermuth, but if I play him, I can't play the 2 Baltimore guys, tight ends. So do you guys have a favorite Pittsburgh wideout?
That's how I feel too. And so the next guy that I'm most likely to go to would be Calvin Austin, 4K. Like he's going to get opportunities. It's just about whether he catches them. If he does, he's very, very fast. And so it's kind of the same with Pickens, right? We know Russell Wilson's going to give them each 3, 4, 5 deep balls downfield. It's just going to be about whether they could convert or not. And if one of them hits the end zone for the fantasy points to get there. But we know it's a boom bust spot because he's just going to throw the ball up there. It's just whether or not they come down with it. So Austin, I do like getting into as a run back for Baltimore teams. Pickens, if you land on him, I'm totally good with. I think he makes for, considering how high we own Nico Collins and Ladd McConkey are gonna be. I don't think it's at half the ownership. I think you definitely want to be overweight on Pickens if you're playing a lot of lineups. I'm finding it tough to get there in only 3, but he's a boom or bust tournament play, as is Calvin Austin. Basically anybody for Pittsburgh, you just have to play under the assumption of knowing if they hit on their long plays, they could have a big day, but they have the lowest floor of anybody of these 4 teams.
They're also pretty likely to be in a comeback position, so they're going to have to start airing it out. Now, also, when you look at, first of all, Pickens should be absolutely embarrassed in that Cincy game. I mean, he was just so freaking bad. Even AB, great Twitter follow, by the way, Antonio Brown. Not him making his tweets, but great tweets that are coming out of that account. I got to give it up. But, back when they played Baltimore in week 11, he had 12 targets, 8 catches, 89 yards. A decent game. I could definitely see him bouncing back with them being forced to throw. I mean, he's just going to have to. So I might prioritize him a little bit more the more I think about it now on this 2-gamer. Yeah, I mean, we've kind of touched on every single one here. So let's talk about tight end. I know we're all in agreement that, first of all, I like Freiermuth. I've been saying Freiermuth all season. He's been doing very strong effort these last few, for a while now, since week 12. 4 touchdowns in his last 6 games. Definitely a red zone threat for sure. He did have a big game against Cincy. Cincy's like the nut matchup, so I wouldn't, put too much stock into that. But he had a terrible game when they last played Baltimore. But I think he's kind of the safety valve for Russ, especially down in the red zone. So definitely like him. I like Likely. Everyone's talking about like Bateman stepping up next. I think it's probably Mark Andrews is the wide receiver 1, and Likely is certainly in play. So I definitely like playing them both together, or playing one or the other, or using Freiermuth. Dalton Schultz is a guy that has at least has that veteran presence for Houston. So I could see him getting an uptick. So, and as we get into serious games here that mean a lot, I like tight ends are better. It's kind of like the island game, in the beginning of the season, everyone tight ends were just going crazy. Playoffs, tight ends are used. So I feel pretty good about all of these guys, even Will Dissly. And then, my totally out there play is going to be, and I almost caught it. It's not just looking for a touchdown, is Darnell Washington, that number 80, big number 80 for Pitt here, 2,500. You can do a lot if you put him in the lineup, if he gets in the end zone. I'm calling a touchdown out of him in this game.
Ooh, yeah. The old anytime touchdown or first touchdown bet.
Yeah, you can do that, but I think he'll actually pay off more for DFS on a 2-game slate.
It's crazy to say, but I think even on a 2-game slate, opportunity cost might be a little too high at tight end. Like, say he has 2 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown. I don't even know if that's good enough in my 2 tight end lineups.
Oh, it is for 2,500 if you're able to do other things with that in other spots.
Because I genuinely think I will be getting at least 15 from both Andrews and Likely in this spot.
Well, there is a world where you don't.
So, I think those worlds are when Freiermuth, Schultz, or Dissly outscore them. I think the opportunity cost is too high for me at the position.
All right. We'll see if you ship the 2-gamer, TJ. If Darnell Washington scores a touchdown and you still ship without him. I mean, 1% owned. You got to be different. You got to,
because they're pretty big contests. But
you got to be different. You have to be. I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but if it does, it'll help. We'll see. Who else? I mean, there's no one else to even talk about unless you want to mention a Stone Smart.
No, but I do think there's 5 good tight end plays on the slate, and so I think it's a great 2 tight end slate, whether you're doing both Ravens guys or just 2 tight ends in general.
Yeah. All right. Any defensive takes? Doesn't matter.
Ravens if you can. Other than that, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, Chargers should be bringing pressure.
I like the Chargers too.
Yeah, I definitely would not change a lineup up if I can't afford the Ravens and I got to the Chargers. I'm totally good with that. Like Texans and Steelers obviously are less exciting, but on a 2-game slate, defenses are so random, anything can happen.
All right. That is the 2-gamer. Now we get a 3-gamer to talk about, which is a little bit better.
One last quick thing with those tight ends in that Baltimore and Steelers game. I kind of agree with Carolina guy here. That's the makings of a great looking showdown lineup. Is you go Lamar, Derek Henry, likely Andrews, and Washington.
There we go. That's where you play Washington. He's probably like $200.
I'm telling you, if Washington scores a touchdown, he's going to be viable for his price tag. Yes,
he'll be viable for his price tag. I agree.
Yes, he obviously would make a good showdown play for absolutely nothing, and that a better showdown play. But on a 2-game slate, it can happen. It can work out.
You also got to hope Andrews, Freiermuth, Schultz, and Disley also don't score touchdowns.
Well, it depends what your wide receivers look like. I mean, they could score a touchdown, they could be right similar, and you get the savings. I'm saying, I'm playing DFS a long time. I've shipped a lot of tournaments. I'm telling you, like, if that happens, it can work. But we can agree to disagree.
Either way, we're all cheering for a touchdown. I'm gonna bet anytime touchdown.
He almost had it too. I had a lot of money on his anytime touchdown, and they pass interference. They interfered with the big dog. He's huge. He's enormous. All right, so we got 3 games. It's a little bit better of a slate, obviously, with an extra game here. We've got. We'll just go the lines quickly. We've got Denver, who I think is being disrespected a little bit as 8.5-point dog to Buffalo. From a betting standpoint, I would probably bet on Denver in this game, and I might. And it does have a nice 47.5-point total. There's a lot of decent plays in this game in general. Josh Allen is obviously going to be the quarterback that people want to target the most. The next game is Green Bay, who are 5-point favorites as of right now. 5-point dogs as of right now. It's Philly's a 5-point favorite with a 45.5-point total that's been coming down a little bit. We've got Washington, who are a dog going into Tampa, where Tampa's 3-point favorite and a 50.5-point total. So from a totals perspective, the Washington-Tampa game stands out, but there are plenty of ways to go. So let's big picture overview. TJ, what's your strategy for this one?
The last game is definitely going to be like the tough thing is this is the one that I like the best by far, but it's also the one that the field seems to like the best by far. Now we've had a whole bunch of changes in ownership projections over the last couple days. And so Baker Mayfield has gone from among the most popular to dropping down the list a little bit. And so I'm going to be interested to see how it actually shakes out, because as of right now, as we record, Baker Mayfield is the 4th highest owned quarterback in projections. And now if he comes behind Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield is absolutely my favorite. I just don't know if that's actually going to be the case because it's so close together. Jaden Daniels might end up becoming the lowest owned in the large field tournaments because people see that he's the highest owned and don't want to play him. And on a 3-game slate, when it's all this close together, I feel like that's an actual possible outcome. And so there are 4 great quarterback options to me on this slate. And then Bo Nix and I think Bo Nix and Love, even though I don't like them near as much for how low owned they're going, 9% we're projecting for Nix, 4% we're projecting for Love. Even if you switch to the blitz projections, still super low, 11 and 10% for both of them. I think they are optimal more often than their projections. So if I was playing a lot of lineups, I would definitely want to get overweight on Nix and Love. But Daniels is my favorite. Mayfield is 2nd. Allen's 3rd. Hurts 4th. But even with that, like, I know I'm going to be game stacking the last game. And I think it's super interesting to mess around with ideas of like, you play Bucky Irving and Mike Evans and Terry McLaurin, whoever else you want to from this game, Zach Ertz, and just play Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts instead of the quarterbacks and say, yeah, Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels score 20 to 25 points. Their stacks go off. But because Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, they each rush for 2 or 3 touchdowns. Their stacks didn't go off because they were rushing touchdowns, but they still did. I think that's a super interesting way to get unique on this slate. Stack up the last game, but with either Hurts or Allen. All that to say, I don't know what the hell to do at quarterback yet.
Well, so what I'm seeing, I've got like everybody blended here, like around the industry, and it's showing to me right now that I've got Jaden Daniels being the highest owned quarterback, and then Josh Allen right there. So those two kind of neck and neck, and then Jalen Hurts, who's right there, similar with Mayfield, and then the bottom tier is Bo Nix, and Jordan Love is the lowest. That's what I'm seeing right now, but it's like it really doesn't make that much of a difference, at least if these ownership projections stand, whether you're using Baker, Hurts, Allen, or Daniels from an ownership perspective. It's basically you just want to pick the guy who's going to score the most points from this here. Or
I agree there 100%. And like just the fact that I think Nix and Love will both be single digit, it does make me tempted. But they just kind of feel like a tier below the others in this spot.
I kind of like Nix, and my thought is he's kind of like a dink and dunker for the most part, except with now that they've got Mims going deep, and he will throw the occasional deep one. But like Buffalo's defense is always like bend, don't break. So I feel like they could use up a lot of clock and also, rack up some points, and he will run a little bit. So I think, you got to take that. I think Jordan Love against this Philly passing D is just, I can't see it for him really going off, especially the way that he's been playing as of late. But so like for my low owned guy, it's Nix. But who do you like, Noto?
Yeah, I like Nix too. You mentioned his ability to run. I mean, for a while there, he wasn't running at all, but he's had at least 23 rushing yards in 4 straight games. They're going to be trailing. We've seen the Bills' defense. They've been not great against the pass, especially the second half of the season. So love Nix in tournaments. I'm going to try to get up to Josh Allen if I can. I don't think you have to pair him up with anybody. I might be Galaxy brain in this one, but with Jalen Hurts, they get down to the 1. I mean, he's missed the last 2 games with a concussion. Maybe they give it to Saquon instead of doing the push. Any chance that happens just to prevent another concussion?
It's also they like Saquon ran incredibly bad, being like it seemed like for the most of the season, like he was always going down at the 1 yard line. So I mean, the real risk with Hurts upside is yes, that concussion, but it's also the fact that Saquon is like their huge asset at this point. And that's why they brought him in, and so they're definitely going to be running the ball. But yes, I think that is totally a possibility.
I think I would go like Hurts would be 4th for me of the 4, and I agree Nick's like far above Jordan Love, like way, way better. Maybe closer to those 4 than to Jordan Love, to be honest. This is the spot where of the 2 slates of all the positions, this is the spot I'm having toughest time narrowing it down. I think I want to go Daniels or Mayfield just because I like the game environments. But Allen, Hurts, Nix, all of them I think are interesting. I'm tempted to just go equal shares of all the quarterbacks and then just go super heavy to the core of skill position players that I like.
Yeah. I mean, ownership doesn't really matter too much, and all of these guys are capable of having big games. Like at least the big 4, but 3 of them are more capable of having. I mean, Baker does rush. What's the most? He just rushed for 68 yards against New Orleans, but that was such a weird game. They were totally.
He loves to put his shoulder down too. I love when he starts running for a first down.
Yeah, like he's not going to get the design run plays that the other guys get, but he'll scramble very nicely. I think him and Nix have essentially the same rushing outlook. They're not Hurts, Allen, or Daniels, but I think he and Nix are both like very solid runners for all things considered.
I mean, Daniels, with the way Tampa's defense is, that defense is just Swiss cheese. Like, Daniels should carve him up, should run a bunch on him.
The part about Nix and Daniels that gives me pause is just this is their rookie quarterbacks in their first playoff game on the road.
Yep, it's fair. Jaden might be different, though.
He might be. That might make him play even better, right? Like, we've seen him have these insane comebacks this year. He just might be that guy.
I mean, I loved McLaurin when we get there. All right, running backs. Bucky, nothing bad to say. Probably the best running back play on the slate. Saquon, obviously, up there too. Josh, it's tough to run on Philly. The thing about Josh Jacobs is that they're going to pound him. You know, McCord is going to pound him. LaFleur is going to pound the rock. So I don't really want Jacob. I can't see Jacobs doing that well. I'm just down on Green Bay in general, period. I think Philly rolls in this spot, but maybe so obviously, are we in agreement that those two, Bucky and Saquon, are the top plays?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Bucky
then
tier all of his own, then Saquon, but yeah.
It's crazy saying Bucky is in a tier above Saquon.
I know it does feel weird, but like to me, even if he's going to be 80% owned, I'm just going to let the other 20% pay the rake. It's lock button Bucky Irving time.
James Cook is probably, so from ownership, Bucky's going to be the highest owner for sure. We're like 50 to 60% is what I'm seeing. Saquon 35 to 40%. Then we get down to James Cook, Josh Jacobs, both around the same, looking at 30, 35%, somewhere around there. What's interesting to me is Austin Eckler. You know, now that we're getting into the playoffs, Brian Robb, just used better in the passing game. You want to pass against this Tampa D. I don't know how many touches he will probably get, but he certainly has the ability to break some big plays. So I'm kind of interested there. I know there's some talk going on about McLaughlin for Denver, especially against Buffalo's run D. But Noto, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I really only like two guys, and you mentioned them, Saquon and Bucky. I think I'm just going to play them, and then I don't know, McLaughlin got a lot of work in that final game when they needed to win. But anytime I've trusted Denver's running backs, it just goes the other way. It could be Javonte, it could be Estime. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to play Jacobs at this price point in this matchup. James Cook can always get there, but, we can't count on him for more than 15 touches. I'd rather play Josh Allen. You mentioned Washington. If they're trailing, maybe it's an Eckler spot, but there's so many ifs with everyone outside of Barkley and Bucky Irving.
I feel very similarly there. Like Irving is going to be a lock button for me. Barkley is my second highest priority. Jacobs falls well down. There's still some lineups where I would consider playing Jacobs just because there's enough cheap receivers that I think you can do a triple spend up at running back and still really like the look of your lineup. I built a Jaden Daniels triple stack before that faded McLaurin, but played all three expensive running backs, and it looked really, really good. James Cook just worries me because I don't actually I think there's a ceiling in GPPs for James Cook because I think there's a situation where Buffalo goes, all right, we've mixed in these other guys all season long, so James Cook is fresh. Let's let him go. But I don't actually know that they like James Cook enough more than Ray Davis and Tyler Johnson for them to switch anything up. I think they might still be running out the same type of offensive rotations that they have all year long is my current lean on it. And so I'm lower on him. Jaleel McLaughlin, if I was going to try a Denver running back, but that'll depend on how many lineups I play. I would rather not do it. I think the most interesting guy not named Saquon Barkley or Bucky Irving is Austin Eckler. We talk about wanting a pass-catching running back against Tampa Bay. This guy's a veteran, and when Brian Robinson's been struggling with fumbles a little bit towards the end of the year, I think Austin Eckler is going to be really involved in the passing game today. And on a point per reception site like DraftKings, where he's only projecting for like 12% ownership right now, I really, really like him there. In my favorite game environment, he's a great way to get a low-owned piece.
Yep, I love that game. I love him. All right, let's go to wide receiver. From an ownership standpoint, it looks like what I'm seeing here, the blended, it looks like Shakir is getting a lot of love. McLaurin. I want to hear your guys' takes on Mike Evans. We get to see the battle that he gets here. Then Cortland Sutton, AJ Brown. AJ Brown is looking a little bit underowned to me. I know he's been a little bit dinged up too. Zacchaeus is now the wide receiver 2 in Washington. Mims is coming on. There's like a lot of solid plays. Devontae Smith, McMillan. There's a lot of good wide receiver plays. So how are you attacking this, Noto?
Yeah, I love Terry McLaurin. I think it's a great spot for him. It's an easy way to get exposure to Washington too. Love the spot for Cortland Sutton. I've been playing him all year. He just continues to perform each and every week. I think he's had at least 8 targets in 6 of the last 8 games. And then for Tampa, I kind of like Jalen McMillan. So Marshawn Lattimore is going to play. We know him and Mike Evans have a very lengthy history, and Lattimore's had like the better of him 95% of their matchups. Now, Lattimore's been dealing with an injury. I don't know if he's going to have, full complement of snaps. I don't know if he's even been good this year, but yeah, I mean, if he can shut down Mike Evans and we can get just a bunch of McMillan targets. He's also scored, I think, 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games, McMillan. So those are probably the 3 that I like the most. I think Shakir is pretty interesting. We know Patrick Surtain's going to be on the outside, shutting down the outside corners, so could force some targets over the middle to Shakir. And that's pretty much it for me. I do think, Zacchaeus is going to be very popular. He's everyone's favorite answer in the expert survey for favorite salary saver.
But it's like, so who else do they have though that you think that they could, if they don't use him? I mean, obviously Ertz is getting a bunch of targets now, which is crazy. They adding in like a healthy Eckler, where he may siphon off a few extra targets. Obviously Terry McLaurin, but like, you think they're going to do any? You think like De'Ami Brown is going to get anything or?
I think De'Ami Brown is very much in play as a punt at 3,400. He's on the field a lot. He's been getting some targets. He's had in the last few games 4 targets, 5 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. So he's on the field and getting looks for 3,400. That's pretty darn nice, especially to get attachment to a chalky quarterback in a low-owned way at only like 5% projected ownership for him. I think so as much as I'm wishy-washy at quarterback, I feel like very ready to take some stands at receiver, and I think it's the best place to do so. I think Khalil Shakir is essentially the best fade on the slate. We're projecting him to be either like the highest or second highest owned receiver on the slate, and I don't think he should be. He doesn't have the ceiling that the other guys in the price range do. He doesn't get end zone targets. He doesn't get red zone targets. He is the best median projected option as he should be, because we know he's going to get 6 to 8 targets, and he's probably going to finish this game with 10 to 15 points. I just think there are going to be too many other receivers that are going to be better than that. And so I think Shakir... Amy?
Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
I was going to say, I think Shakir, like, he's got the highest floor of all the receivers in that price range, but the lowest ceiling. And so I love the idea of fading him. I'm not as bullish on this, but I think there's definitely like case to be made to fade Mike Evans as the highest owned receiver on the slate, when in 13 career games against Marshawn Lattimore, he's hit once. He's had 1 good game in 13 career appearances. And so I would give the edge to Evans in a vacuum, but if he's going to be the highest owned receiver, I don't mind taking shots on these other guys because I think they're going to be really high upside options. And the third one that I think it again scares me, but I'm somewhat comfortable being underweight on, is Terry McLaurin, because even though this is by far the best playmaker in Washington's offense, unless Cliff Kingsbury is just going to go, I knew we were good. I've been saving this for the playoffs all season long, and now I'm going to unleash Terry McLaurin. Just doesn't move him around. He plops him on that right side all day long. They're going to have their best corner over there. And Tampa is another one of these teams that just gives up a ton of yards to the middle of the field and not on the outside. And they just don't move Terry to the middle of the field, which I hate. Now, like, if I knew they were going to be moving Terry McLaurin around lots in this game, I would hit the lock button. I would put him in every single lineup. It's just they haven't done that all year long. He's only led the team in targets 3 times in the last 8 games. 3 times. Otherwise, it's been Zacchaeus, it's been Ertz, or somebody else popping in there. It's usually Zacchaeus and Ertz. And so I am worried about Evans. I'm worried about McLaurin, and I don't like Shakir. And so I think I'm going to be making sure that I play Bucky and Saquon in every lineup, and then spending on these mid-range receivers, Jalen McMillan, Mims, Wicks, Zacchaeus, even punting all the way down to Diami Brown. And I think the Packers receivers, even if you're not playing Love, are very much in play here, like Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, and Devonta Wicks. Dontavian, I always call him Dontavian Wicks. I think all the Packers receivers are individually in play here.
All right. I will echo your sentiment with Shakir. I think if he's going to be the highest owned, he's probably the best paid. There's just too many options. There's too many different ways for the game to break for Buffalo. And the only worry I have is that Denver is a slot funnel and Shakir is the slot guy. So I don't like that so much, but I agree that I think he's the best fade. Especially with like Amari, like they got Amari Cooper, they've got Keon healthy, they've got Kincaid back, Josh with his legs. There's just so many options. I disagree a little bit with Terry McLaurin, I kind of going to give Kingsbury the benefit of the doubt that they're going to get him moving. This is a Swiss cheese defense, period. Like if he doesn't have I'll be shocked if he doesn't have a good game. He's only 6,500. So I'm there. I like Devontae Smith. I like McMillan. Obviously I hope if you're playing McMillan, you're hoping that Evans gets bottled up. But I don't know. Lattimore hasn't played this season. So it's like, what is he going to look like? And Evans is coming on and getting, he's clear. He's battling double and triple teams so far, And if they go if he's going to have man coverage with older banged up Lattimore, I think it's going to be Mike Evans all day. He's just.
You guys have a favorite on Green Bay? I do agree with your point. We don't know if Lattimore is going to be good, but we'll see. But yeah, Green Bay. Anybody there?
Jaden Reed. I mean, he always busts when I play him. Whenever I like him. I mean, I would go Kraft maybe. Who do you like?
To say that I think I like Dobbs and Wicks best, and then and Kraft too, like all above Reed, just because Reed's role doesn't really change with Watson out, whereas it just kind of solidifies Dobbs and Wicks as the 2 receivers who are always on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, and Reed just comes in for those third ones. And this is very much like a McLaurin scenario is, hey, will they just decide to move him around because now that it's playoffs? And for Jaden Reed, it's will they decide to scheme up more targets for him because it's playoffs? But he's not going to be on the field as often as Dobbs and Wicks.
And are they just going to run the ball all game? Yeah. What about like Keon Coleman, like hoping for a big play?
I think Coleman and Cooper are both super interesting in Josh Allen stacks specifically, like not as one-offs, but in Josh Allen stacks as ways to fade Shakir.
What's Curtis Samuel still getting any love? 3,100. I don't know.
Probably rather try Hollins than Samuel, I think, just because he's on the field a lot.
Mac Hollins, barefoot. I love Matt Collins. I won like a big Rainmakers contest like last year or 2 years ago. Was it 2 years? I don't know. I can't keep track of time, but with Matt Collins. But
shout out
All
Rainmaker.
right.
Pouring out.
Rest in peace. Pour a little out for I mean, never mind. I was just gonna go down the top shots, but I'm not gonna go there. All right. Tight end. Zach Ertz getting massive targets with Jaden Daniels. Obviously, you like the passing game against Tampa games. This game could break out. I mean, he's getting in the end zone too. He's back-to-back weeks to finish in like important games where he, had good games and caught touchdowns. 2 touchdowns against the Falcons, 1 against Dallas. Kincaid, interesting. I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts with him. I'll be interested to hear Crawford Kraft, Dallas Goedert, and then any out there plays. But what are you doing, TJ?
Yeah, Ertz is going to be my favorite with, I think, Kraft too, but Goddard, Kincaid, Otton, they're all in play. I wanted to kind of come out and say Otton's the one guy I don't have interest in just because I stopped looking at him in the red zone the second Mike Evans came back in the lineup. But if he's going to be the lowest owned of the group by a fairly wide margin, then it's like, well, okay, maybe I am a little bit interested in him just because he's in my favorite game and he's going to be low owned. So I don't think I'd mess around with playing anybody other than Ertz, Otton, Kincaid, Goddard, Kraft. And I would probably rank them Ertz, Kraft, Goddard, Kincaid, Otton. But that's basically what the field is ranking them as well in terms of ownership. So tight end, and I have stands I'm ready to make at running back and wide receiver on the Sunday slate. But quarterback and tight ends, I'm still feeling pretty wishy-washy and just saying, let's keep our same core of running backs and wide receivers in every lineup and then just mix and match the quarterbacks and tight ends.
We got Chris Longo in chat, Tilton Coos. So I had to look up to see if Jordan Poole was playing, and that's obviously why. For NBA talk. Noto, can we do a Dawson Knox anytime touchdown bet?
Yeah, this is the time to do it. Everyone's going to play Dalton Kincaid, myself included. It's going to look like he's scoring a touchdown, and then he's going to turn around. It's going to be 88, not 86. Everyone's going to be tilted. Twitter's going to blow up.
That gets me every single time too. Every single time you see the 8. All you see is the 8.
Yeah, and the 6 kind of looks like an 8 sometimes. But yeah, I like that bet quite a bit. Ertz is my favorite. Kincaid's my second favorite. Like you talked about, they kind of Denver funnels targets over the middle of the field. So I think it's a good spot for Kincaid. I don't have a strong take on anybody else.
From a matchup, it looks like, Dallas Goedert from a matchup perspective. Anyway, you can't go dumpster diving here on this one. All right, defense. Me personally, I'd be fine. I'm fine playing Denver for 2,400, and if I need the savings. But obviously, the Bills are probably going to be the most owned on the other side of that game. Philly is also going to be popular with the way that Jordan Love's been playing, recency bias. And then and their D's been good, period. But any either of you guys got any strong defensive takes?
For me, just kind of wherever I land, I'm totally fine with. It does look like people are going to be spending down, punting with the Packers or the Broncos. And so that does make me more willing to spend up to the Bills, the Bucks, the Eagles. The Eagles, of course, be the most popular of the spend ups, but I think Washington, Buffalo, and Bucks are far more viable than their ownership suggests. Bills would be my favorite, but anybody in the tournament because it's defense. But I would try and go the 3 that are projecting for single-digit ownership.
I've got them a little different. The only one I've got down for single-digit is the Commanders at this point. And that's, what's great, like that game should be a shootout, and yes, that hurts, but you have a higher chance of getting like a pick 6, which is really what you need. in a game that shoots out. But
I think Buffalo is probably my favorite.
Yeah, they should be at home. Actually, I kind of like Philly. If I had just raw point,
them too.
I think I prefer Philly. I think Denver's going to put up a fight in this game. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just what I think. All right, that's it. We've talked an hour about a 2-gamer and a 3-game slate here. Any final words for the people? Noto.
Oh, thanks for joining. We'll have another show next week, I think, and then I'll have my showdown article up for those of you playing the Rams and Vikings.
Nice. TJ.
Yeah, one last Rams Viking take. I think for the showdown perspective, best captain to play in that game, it's Jordan Addison. We got lots of guys we want to spend up for. Jordan Addison thrives in play action. The Rams are weak against play action. It allows you to spend up for Nakua, some quarterbacks, some Jefferson if you want. And so I love me some Jordan Addison at captain in that lineup. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this year. We got one show left. Like Noto said, I believe Bobby should be back from his vacation for that one.
He's in Aruba. He's in Aruba, for everyone who's wondering.
Yeah, Bobby hopefully back for the last show. But it's been fun. Thanks for embracing me as a fill-in this year.
Yeah, it's been fun. And thank you. I've been doing this for like a long time. I don't even know how many seasons, but like definitely a lot of seasons. But thank you for everyone tuning in. We've had a lot of different hosts, it's good to get some consistency, and Noto has been that consistent man since Bobby's had some troubles towards the end of the season. So thank you, Noto, for coming back this year. And thank you, TJ, for not only producing, but being a host as well. And providing some great GPP takes and overall lineup construction thoughts have been an added bonus. So thank you. All right, Juggalo Nation, everyone else who's in the chat, and also people who are listening on YouTube or wherever you're listening from. Thank you for tuning in all season. We certainly appreciate it. And we will still be back for another show next week. So let's make some money this weekend. Darnell, Washington. And let's call it a day. Thanks. This has been the RG DFS Tournament Takes Podcast Wild Card Edition, and we will catch you next week. Thanks.